Imagine finding a weapon that should never have existed. Not because it was dangerous, because it was impossible. King Tutankhamun died more than 3,300 years ago, but hidden beside his body was an iron dagger. An iron dagger. There's just one problem. Iron didn't exist in Egypt. Not yet. Not for another 500 years. So who made it? Who forged it? And how did it end up inside the tomb of Egypt's most famous pharaoh? For almost 100 years, nobody had an answer. Then, scientists scanned the blade. Just one scan changed everything. The results were unbelievable. This wasn't ordinary iron. It wasn't mined. It wasn't smelted. It didn't even come from Earth. It came from a meteorite. A piece of space buried with a king. But that's only half the story. Because knowing where the metal came from doesn't explain who turned a fallen star into a weapon. And that is where this mystery becomes truly unbelievable. The year was 1922. The world was still recovering from the devastation of the First World War. Thousands of miles away, in the silent deserts of Egypt, one man refused to give up. His name was Howard Carter. For 6 exhausting years, Carter searched the Valley of the Kings. Season after season, his team uncovered nothing but broken pottery, collapsed chambers, and tombs that had already been looted centuries before. Even his financial supporter, Lord Carnarvon, had begun to lose hope. Many believed the valley had already revealed all of its secrets. But Carter wasn't ready to quit. Sometimes, history waits until the very last moment. Then, on November 4th, 1922, everything changed. Not because of an archaeologist, not because of an expensive expedition, but because of a young water boy. While clearing debris from the valley floor, he noticed something unusual beneath the sand. A single stone step. At first, it didn't seem important. But as workers carefully removed more sand, another step appeared. Then another. Until finally, an entire staircase emerged from beneath the desert. At the bottom stood a sealed doorway, covered with ancient royal seals. One seal carried a name, Tutankhamun. Howard Carter immediately understood the importance of what he was looking at. He sent an urgent telegram to Lord Carnarvon in England. At last, have made wonderful discovery in valley, a magnificent tomb with seals intact. 3 weeks later, Carnarvon finally arrived in Egypt. Together, they stood before the ancient doorway, one last barrier separating the modern world from a chamber untouched for more than 3,000 years. On November 26th, Howard Carter carefully made a tiny hole through the sealed entrance. He raised a candle and slowly looked inside. Warm air escaped from the ancient chamber, making the flame flicker. For several long seconds, no one spoke. Finally, Lord Carnarvon broke the silence. "Can you see anything?" Carter never looked away. His answer became one of the most famous lines in archaeological history. "Yes, wonderful things." Behind that doorway was a world frozen in time. Golden chariots, magnificent statues, ivory furniture, jewelry beyond imagination, treasures stacked from floor to ceiling. At the center, a massive golden shrine. Hidden inside it, another shrine, then another, until finally, 3 magnificent coffins. Inside the last coffin lay the mummy of a young king, Tutankhamun. Ironically, Tutankhamun was never considered one of Egypt's greatest rulers. He ruled for less than 10 years. He died around the age of 18. He built no great pyramids, won no legendary battles, and after his death, even his name was almost erased from history. Yet, because his tomb remained almost untouched, he became the most famous pharaoh the world has ever known. Over the next decade, Howard Carter and his team catalogued 5,398 individual objects. Every item was carefully photographed, measured, recorded. Nothing was ignored, until they reached the king himself. Wrapped within the linen bandages, resting beside Tutankhamun's right thigh, were 2 ceremonial daggers. The first, made entirely of gold, exactly what archaeologists expected. But the second dagger was different. Its elegant handle was crafted from gold. Its crystal pommel sparkled beautifully, yet its blade was made of iron. At first, nobody realized why that mattered. Howard Carter simply described it as an iron dagger of exquisite workmanship. It was photographed, catalogued, and quietly placed inside a museum collection. For decades, almost nobody questioned it. But hidden inside that beautiful weapon was a mystery that would challenge everything historians believed about ancient Egypt. Because there was one impossible problem. Tutankhamun died around 1323 BC. At that time, Egypt was still living in the Bronze Age. Iron technology simply wasn't supposed to exist. And yet, someone had placed an expertly crafted iron dagger beside the body of a pharaoh. Who made it? Where did the iron come from? And why would it take scientists almost 100 years to discover the truth? That mystery begins next. At first, the dagger didn't seem unusual. After all, it was just another priceless artifact inside the greatest archaeological discovery of the 20th century. But decades later, historians noticed something that changed everything. Not the gold, not the craftsmanship, the metal itself. Because Tutankhamun lived during Egypt's Bronze Age, an age when civilizations relied almost entirely on bronze for weapons, tools, and armor. Bronze was reliable, easy to produce, and incredibly valuable. The Egyptians had mastered it. But iron was a completely different story. To understand why this dagger was impossible, we first need to understand the science behind ancient metallurgy. Copper melts at just over 1,000 degrees Celsius. A charcoal furnace could easily reach those temperatures. Iron could not. Iron requires temperatures above 1,500 degrees Celsius, a level of heat that Bronze Age furnaces simply weren't capable of producing. Even if ancient Egyptians had discovered iron ore, they lacked the technology needed to extract usable metal from it. By every known historical timeline, iron smelting didn't become common until centuries later. Most historians believe the first large-scale iron technology appeared in Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, around 1200 BC. From there, the knowledge slowly spread across the ancient world, eventually reaching Egypt, hundreds of years after Tutankhamun had already been buried. That's what makes this dagger so extraordinary. It wasn't just old. It existed before it should have been possible. Imagine finding a modern smartphone inside a medieval castle. That's how impossible this discovery looked to archaeologists. Naturally, researchers searched for simple explanations. Perhaps it had been imported. Maybe it was a royal gift from another kingdom. Perhaps another civilization had mastered iron much earlier than historians believed. But every explanation led to another mystery. No kingdom from that period had left behind evidence of advanced iron production. No ancient records describe such a weapon. And no known iron source matched the dagger itself. The deeper scientists looked, the stranger the mystery became. Then, someone asked a question that nobody had considered before. What if the iron had never come from Earth at all? Long before telescopes, before rockets, before anyone understood the solar system, the ancient Egyptians already believed something extraordinary. They believed that certain metals came directly from the heavens. They even had a name for it. Pet, iron from the sky. To them, meteorites weren't ordinary rocks. They were sacred gifts, fragments of the heavens, objects connected to the gods themselves. Whenever a blazing fireball crossed the night sky and a strange black stone landed in the desert, the Egyptians believed they had witnessed something divine. They collected these stones, protected them, and treated them with enormous respect. For centuries, nobody connected this ancient belief with King Tut's mysterious dagger, until modern science finally caught up. In 2016, a team of Italian researchers was granted permission to examine the famous blade. But there was one rule. The artifact could not be damaged, not even slightly. So the scientists brought a portable machine capable of analyzing metal without ever touching it. The technology was called X-ray fluorescence, or simply XRF. The scan lasted only minutes. Then the results appeared. Nickel, 10.8%. Cobalt, 0.58%. Those numbers meant everything. Ordinary iron from Earth's crust contains very little nickel. Meteorites contain much more. The dagger matched the exact chemical fingerprint of meteoritic iron. There was no doubt, no debate, no alternative explanation. King Tut's dagger had been forged from a fallen meteorite, a weapon made from a fragment of space. Researchers compared the blade's chemical composition with known meteorites discovered in Egypt. One stood out immediately: the Dagger meteorite. Its elemental fingerprint closely matched the metal used in the dagger. Billions of years ago, this ancient rock formed deep inside an asteroid somewhere in our solar system. After an unimaginably long journey through space, it crashed into the Egyptian desert. Thousands of years later, human hands transformed that fallen star into one of history's most mysterious weapons. But the discovery created another question. Finding a meteorite is one thing. Turning it into a perfectly crafted dagger is something else entirely. Who possessed that knowledge? Who shaped metal from the heavens 500 years before the Iron Age? That mystery leads us to the final chapter. The mystery of the metal had finally been solved. The dagger came from space, But that answer created an even bigger question. Who transformed a fallen star into a weapon fit for a king? Finding a meteorite is not the same as forging one. Meteorites are incredibly difficult to work with. Their metal is hard, brittle, filled with internal stresses caused by billions of years drifting through space, and the violent heat of entering Earth's atmosphere. One wrong strike with a hammer, and the entire piece can shatter. Yet, Tutankhamun's dagger is almost flawless. Its blade is perfectly balanced. Its edge is remarkably straight. Its craftsmanship rivals weapons made thousands of years later. This wasn't luck. This was skill. Exceptional skill. So, who possessed that knowledge? Ancient Egyptian craftsmen? Foreign master blacksmiths? Or someone whose name has disappeared forever? Some historians believe the dagger may have arrived as a diplomatic gift. During the Bronze Age, kings exchanged extraordinary treasures: gold, precious stones, war chariots, exotic animals, even rare weapons. The Amarna letters mention gifts of iron between powerful kingdoms. Could Tutankhamun's dagger have been one of them? Perhaps. But even that theory leaves one final mystery. Someone, somewhere, still had to forge the blade. Working meteoritic iron isn't the same as mining ordinary iron. It demands patience, precision, and years of experience. The blacksmith would have needed to heat the metal carefully, hammer it gently, and shape it without allowing it to crack. These aren't skills discovered overnight. They are learned over generations. Yet, archaeology has uncovered almost no evidence of workshops capable of producing weapons like this. It's as if the knowledge appeared long enough to create one masterpiece, then vanished forever. Perhaps we've underestimated ancient civilizations. History isn't a perfect record. Many discoveries have been lost. Cities disappear, libraries burn, empires collapse, knowledge fades. Maybe the people who forged this dagger knew far more than we realize. Or perhaps there are still chapters of human history waiting to be uncovered. One detail makes this artifact even more extraordinary. Inside Tutankhamun's tomb, there were 5,398 priceless objects. Gold covered nearly everything: jewelry, furniture, weapons, statues, treasures beyond imagination. Yet only one object was made from iron, and that object was placed directly against the young king's body. Not inside a treasure chest, not displayed beside his throne, but hidden beneath the linen wrappings, touching his right thigh. That placement wasn't accidental. To the ancient Egyptians, this weapon clearly carried immense importance. Perhaps it wasn't just a dagger. Perhaps it was protection, a sacred object, a fragment of the heavens, meant to accompany a king into eternity. Even after centuries of research, no one can answer that question with certainty. And maybe that's exactly why this story continues to fascinate the world. More than 3,300 years ago, a young pharaoh entered eternity, carrying a weapon forged from a fallen star. For centuries, the dagger remained hidden beneath layers of linen, silent, forgotten. waiting. Then, modern science finally revealed its secret. Not magic, not myth, but something equally extraordinary. A fragment of an ancient meteorite transformed into one of history's greatest archaeological mysteries. Today, King Tut's dagger reminds us of something important. The ancient world still holds secrets. Some are buried beneath deserts. Some lie hidden inside museum collections. And some have been in front of us all along, waiting for someone to ask the right question. So the next time you look up at the night sky, remember this. Somewhere among those countless stars, the journey of King Tut's dagger began, long before humanity existed, long before Egypt, long before history itself. And after traveling billions of kilometers through space, it found its final resting place beside a forgotten king. If you enjoyed uncovering mysteries like this, subscribe to Silent History. Turn on notifications and join us as we continue exploring the greatest unsolved stories of our ancient past. Until next time, keep questioning history, because sometimes the impossible is simply the truth we haven't discovered yet.